Hey everybody, Tara Thomas Getman. We are live at City Hall with really a large group of people that we're grateful could all come together because this is just a really important conversation that we wanted to have. So I'll pan over. You can see we have 3 PD officers in uniform, and we have some other HR and health professionals that we're going to talk to. So this is something that is really unique in that only in recent years has there been more of a focus on the mental health and well-being of police officers. So tell us your name, Chief, and a little bit about this initiative and how it came to be a priority of yours.
Yeah. Rob Duncan, Chief of the Police for the Waterloo Police Department, obviously. So one of the things that Aaron and I talked about when I took over as chief, it's like, hey, what can we do more for our staff? We always want to talk about how can we reduce crime, what can we do to better service the community? But in reality, the most important part of the police department is our staff. The happier they are, the healthier they are, the better morale they are, the more apt they are to give great service is what we want, to solve crime and to be able to have long-lasting careers. So we started kind of with a 3-pronged approach this last year. The first thing we did was a peer support program. We sent 12 officers to a 3-day school to basically learn how to be a peer support person or peer support officer. We actually have civilian staff that went as well. And then basically each person that went to this class has a unique kind of a tragic situation that's happened in their lives and they were able to maybe utilize that situation to help somebody else out in the future. The next thing we did, and this took a lot of work, was to try to figure out what we can do for mental health and for cardiac support or basically heart healthiness throughout the department. Aaron and I spent a lot of time kind of brainstorming this. We reached out to a couple clinicians on the mental health aspect of it. We end up going with Sheila Russell in frontline therapy. And then we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how can we better help our officers stay healthy, especially with the cardiac side of things. Officers are typically much more at risk for cardiac problems and early on in life compared to the general public. So I've got HR, our human resource, Nikki Fischel's here, who has also been extremely helpful with us, trying to get this process going. She pointed us in direction to Waverly Health, who is also here, Levi from Waverly Health, and we were able to implement a cardiac stress test. We got 40 officers done this year.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been something that, that things have happened in the past to us or for us, and that have been tragic. We lost an officer to suicide. We also lost an officer 9 years ago to a heart attack. Both were good friends of ours. The person that died from a heart attack, Adam Little, he was working out, healthy guy, had no symptoms, and he just collapsed. And then same with Monty with the suicide. If we thought, hey, if there's something that we can do to prevent that and to help keep our staff happy and healthy, let's give it a shot and let's see if we can figure it out and work through it. So I didn't want to be the whole guy sitting here in front of you, so I brought a lot of people in to help me out, kind of tell their side of things and to show what they're doing to help support our department.
Well, it's so important that this work now is something you guys are so committed to that, as you describe, it's almost a silver lining that comes out of tragedy, because in 2 of those situations and the horrible loss of those 2 officers, now their legacy lives on in that they're not forgotten, and you guys are taking a proactive approach moving forward. So I love that you guys are so intentional about this. Let's talk to your cohort here. Tell us your name and your title.
My name is Aaron McClellan. I'm the Assistant Chief of the Waterloo Police Department.
And how long have you been in the law enforcement game?
I've been in a long time. I was hired with the Waterloo Police Department in 1997.
So you mentioned off camera back in the day, and this was the case for many people in many professions, mental health, conversations, counseling, many times that wasn't a thing. So talk about how you've seen the evolution of that and how we know now that that's not a good approach to just bury all of our feelings.
So when I came on in 1997, along with the chief, we still went through the same traumas, but we didn't have any way to deal with those traumas. So all of us older folks, we put it in a backpack, and at a certain point, some of that is going to sneak up, and it has for all of us. So throughout our careers, we've had loss in regards to mental health, and when we finally were in a place where we could make some decisions, the first conversation that we had was about wellness for our folks. We're in positions right now, we can't affect them too much out on the street, but what we can do and what we focus on is making sure that their place of work is safe, that they're healthy, and they can better serve our citizens. So that was the main focus when the chief took that job, and he and I had a conversation, and along with the other captains, along with the support of our people here today, we've come a long ways in this profession, and I hope things keep going this way.
What's been the response from the team?
We had some skepticism, of course, for the mental health stuff. I have heard a lot of great comments about they'd never done that before.
Because this is like an annual mandatory mental health check.
It is. And it's kind of like the cardiac test, because our hope is this. Our hope is, from my own experience, I did not want to go. Not with this one, but back in the day when I started doing that, and my wife prodded me to do that because of things that I had been through. And it was one of the best things that I ever did. So I tell that story quite often, and it's scary at first. It's hard for us to trust. But once I started going, it was just like things were lifted away from me. So the hope for our folks is that if they've never done it, and this is the first time that they do it, that hopefully that they will seek that out in the future, and that it was a release valve for them, and maybe some things that they'd never talked about before. So the goal is to get them to interact with counseling out on their own after this one time, the scary time.
That's great. It's great that you and the chief are modeling that behavior as well. So we're going to go over to another officer here. Tell us your name and what you do with the Waterloo Police Department.
I'm Jason Chapard. I'm a sergeant on patrol at this point. I'm also a member of the peer support team.
Did you get voluntold that you were going to be a member, or how did you come to be a part of it? Because as the officers are sharing, it can be something that people are kind of like, sounds good, but don't ask me to do it.
Right. I think I wasn't voluntold. I did get put on the spot by the chief at one point during a training session to speak about my mental health problems that I had at one point in time. And I went up in front of basically the whole department and spoke about the issues that I had and what I went through. And that's kind of a big...
So it took a lot of courage.
Yeah. And it's a big no-no, really. I mean, it has been in the past. Luckily, because of these two gentlemen, our department is about 1,000 times better than it has ever been. Because of doing that, I think I've kind of become the face a little bit of, peer support and mental health, along with other people, obviously, for their issues. But I've had a lot of things happen to me where I almost didn't make it through my career because of mental health and the things that we deal with on the street every day. Also last year, myself and another officer were the two that were shot here in the police department, or in the city of Waterloo. That was also a big hurdle to overcome, just to come back and put this uniform back on. So I don't know, with that behind me, and everybody knows through the police department that I've been through these situations. I also have a lot of people that come to me and ask me questions and talk to me about it. And I feel, because of what they're doing and because of things like myself and other officers have lived through, that it's becoming more open, which is never the way it used to be. I've been in law enforcement 24 years, and it was such a stigma that, you got to be tough. You got to be tough being law enforcement. You don't want to show that emotional side. I think that's changed quite a bit, and without these two gentlemen, we wouldn't even have that in this department. So I think it makes a big difference.
Take us back to some of the tragic incidents that you've been a part of. How do you now process this differently from where you would have been before you had the training and the support to work through it?
A lot of it is being more open about what I'm feeling. I'm kind of a stuffer. I stuff it down deep, and I try not to do that as much anymore. Like like the resources that they brought up, like you're going to speak with Sheila Russell here in a little bit, like speaking with her and other people like that is just, it's really kind of freeing. You know, it brings out those emotions that I really didn't want to show people. And it makes a huge difference, you know, like even things about the shooting or the emotional stress that I've seen from incidents that we all see as police officers. Like I spent 10 years in investigations, a lot of it with the chief, and we've seen so many things that are bad and so many aspects of the community that are bad that it's hard to process that for yourself. And then it also bleeds over into your family life too. So I don't want that anymore. I want to be better for myself, my family, the police department, the city. So
tell us about the shooting, how you process that, because it is the worst case scenario that any loved one, friend, family member of a police officer always has top of mind. And then to see you go through it and now have that purpose in your pain that you're helping other officers. I mean, it's just an incredible outcome for something that had to just be so devastating, not just for you, the fear, the physical strain, the reactions, but the loved ones that are now saying, oh my gosh, now he's back, you know, supporting others. Like, what a triumph. So kind of talk about how that has been for you. It's a dark place that now has turned to light.
Yeah, it's been really hard. I didn't know if I would be able to come back to the police department, honestly. And that's not something I would have been open about before this either. But I was able to come through it just because of what I saw with our police department and how everybody came together to support me and the other officer that was involved in that shooting. It's been unbelievable. I've never felt so much connection to everybody in the police department and my family and the community just because of what we went through. And that's a big reason why I chose doing peer support for the police department. I think it's amazing that I can actually be there for other officers and try to help them as much as I can so that they don't have to go through what I went through. And I mean, it was years worth of hard times, even before the shooting, that I had to deal with. And I don't want other officers to have to go through that. And a more emotionally healthy police department is going to make a better city and a stronger community within the city because of the police department.
What is your advice to other, not just other officers, but other departments that are maybe hesitant to embrace this kind of openness and this kind of peer support? It sounds like it can save lives.
Yes, it definitely can save lives. Just with the officer that we had, just because of doing the heart check on him was amazing. But I mean, even the emotional and the mental aspect of it can save many lives. Like he said, we had an officer that committed suicide and a great friend of everybody in the department that knew him, a great man. And just the issues that we dealt with, somebody that you never thought would have something like that happen, it happened. And this can save lives, and other departments need to definitely look into this. I mean, like I said, this isn't a new thing, but it's newer for this area, I would say, for the most part. And these resources that the chief and the assistant chief have put together for our department, it's a major model for what could happen to other departments. Even like the fire department needs to look into this, and I think they are at this point. But that is a good thing for them, because it makes a stronger department, which then helps build a better city. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your honesty, for your courage, for what you've been through. I know there were so many people that were thinking of you and your fellow officer and praying for you both. And it's just so hard because people don't understand that it's such a personal and almost confidential situation, but yet so public. Yeah. So thank you for being so candid about that, because I know just from talking to you, you're definitely making a positive impact on not just as you said, your department, but the community as a whole, and setting that example. So we really appreciate that. Okay, let's talk to Nikki here. Thank you, officer. And we should mention that he has his son here with him too, which is so cool. We love to see that, officers have families. And so when we think about what they've gone through, Nikki, tell us your full name and title.
Yep,
families are impacted, right?
They are.
What happens on the job?
They absolutely are. My name is Nikki Fischels. I'm a human resources specialist here at the City of Waterloo. I was consulted more on the cardiac side of things. When we're making these positive changes, how can we get medical checks done to our officers when they go through these terrible calls? There is negative stresses that act on the heart. It's the bad kind of stress that causes blockage. The adrenaline rushes they get from call after call, siren after siren over 20 years does lead to what we look for cardiac artery disease. And I'll let Waverly Health talk a little bit about that. But my role in it was from an insurance standpoint. Can we just run these claims through our health insurance? How can we pay for this? And that answer was no, you can't. There is no preventative heart screening for officers who don't have any other health issues going on. So if we wanted to go digging, we had to find another way to do it. So we were able to identify some funds. We had some health claim insurance savings, and we thought, let's take some of these funds and put it in a preventative use, because a heart attack itself, by the time an officer is back, can cost easily $100,000 to $200,000. You know, when you think of bypass surgeries and lost wages, and it can be career ending. So we took those dollars and we invested them right into our officers in a preventative way.
I just love this because it's truly a win-win, because everyone is talking about like skyrocketing health costs. Well, when you know this group of people are higher risk, it only makes sense that they should get their screenings funded.
Yes.
So I love that you guys, the city of Waterloo, has creatively come up with a way to make this work that isn't a burden on anybody's bottom line. In fact, you're saving money by having people screened and prevention done before it's too late.
Absolutely. The blockage that that Waverly discovered in one of our officers, that just paid for what it could have done, paid for these screenings 10 times over.
So advice to other HR professionals. I mean, this sounds like you guys have a model sort of case study that they could replicate.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot in the fire side doing these kind of screenings, but this is the first I know of on the police side. So I would encourage my co-parts in any other cities, from a risk management standpoint, it sounds like maybe you're searching for problems where they don't exist, but, look at it from a preventative side. It's the right thing to do for the officer.
Thank you. Thank you for that conversation and for you guys and your effort in HR to make it happen. Okay. We have a couple of folks that aren't a part of the city, but were so kind to tell us how they're supporting this initiative. Name and title, please.
Yeah, my name is Levi Bridges, and I'm the Outpatient Services Manager at Waverly Health Center. So I manage the department where these officers came in to have their cardiac stress test done.
How does it work? Each officer would come in, and then what happens as part of this screening?
Yeah, so they do a treadmill cardiac stress test. So what that entails is the officers come in, we kind of do like an initial screening on them, have a discussion, they get hooked up to some cardiac leads, we take their blood pressure, their heart rate, look at their heart rhythm, and then in conjunction with Cedar Valley Medical Specialists who have an office at Waverly Health Center, their nurse practitioner comes over and she watches them get on the treadmill. That treadmill goes from kind of a slow walking to an incline and transitions into a jog most of the time for these officers, just for their ability to move. And then we watch their cardiac rhythm, and then we look for any rhythm changes that could be indicative of any ischemia or any heart blockage that could be an early detection of coronary artery disease. So like Officer Duncan said, that their officers are at higher risk at a much younger age for getting this, just due to the increased stress and that increased adrenaline rush that they have consistently over and over. It's just a great opportunity for them to get in here and get some screening done with us.
We forget how stress, these external forces, experiences on our lives, how it internally manifests itself in our bodies with physical impacts.
Yep.
What do you see that surprises you? I mean, you guys have discovered, 3 officers now that didn't even realize they had an issue. So kind of walk us through how it is different in that this group of people is undergoing or is impacted by stress levels that many of the average people can't relate to.
Yep. So I can't, kind of like you previously said, EMS staff, firefighters, any of those kind of first responder people that have that aspect of that stress in their lives along with our military field. They're just at a higher risk just due to the hormones and that stresses that are released in your body once you go through those interactions. I just think it's a fantastic opportunity for them to get in there and see these things. Like you said, there was 3 officers that we did.
What was their reaction when you basically told them, like, you might feel fine, but this test is telling us otherwise?
Yeah, I think it's a shock to a lot of people because I think, in this profession, a lot of these people feel like they're fairly healthy. They might routinely work out, but Just like athletes on the field, they can be physically very healthy, but they may not know these underlying diseases. There's hereditary along with the stress that might go into this. So those are things you may not know about, and you may not have any issues that we are now finding that you're having. And gratefully we can look into and hopefully help you from having any issues down the road.
So essentially, it's like you guys are partnering with the city of Waterloo and the police department to do this. And is this a kind of partnership that you hope other people will model in the future?
Yeah, we do. We think it's a great benefit to our community, and we are up in Waverly and they're down in Waterloo, but, I think we're close enough that, they're still considered a community to us. We may live, there may be officers in Waterloo that live in Waverly, that could be responders to us in town too, or first responders to our community. So, we just always think it's a great opportunity to connect with other communities and show them the services that we have at Waverly Health Center, and then partner with Cedar Valley Medical Specialists too to provide these services. So I think it's a great opportunity for other people to look into.
Well, thank you, Levi, for making the long trip down here to Waterloo, Iowa.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it. Okay. And you did actually have a little bit of a drive because you came from the Des Moines area. So tell us your name and who you're with.
I'm Sheila Russell. I am the owner and director of Frontline Therapy located in West Des Moines.
How did you come to be connected with Waterloo PD?
That's a little bit of a story, but essentially several of the officers that are somehow connected to peer support or were connected to peer support prior to it being formalized. I had relationships with them, and it's something that grew, and Chief Duncan, he grabbed it and he ran with it.
What from your medical or expertise are you seeing that would speak to the importance of doing some level of counseling and support for the women and men in these roles of law enforcement?
So several factors. One of the things that we know is that on average, general Americans live to the age of 78. And law enforcement officers have a general lifespan of 66. And that's a significant difference for many different reasons. But some of those include mental health aspects as well as physical health aspects, as Levi was talking about.
That's a shocking statistic. When people hear that, are they surprised, or do these officers realize how much they're enduring that the average person may not in terms of the physical and emotional impact of their jobs?
Right. I think that on the aspect of felonious loss, that's something that is often recognized and the risk is acknowledged. It's the other elements that we're bringing light to with departments implementing these programs is the aspect of not just felonious loss as that being a risk, but additionally the mental health side, the cancer side, the cardiac side, dyslipidemia, high blood pressure, you name it, diabetes. Those are all aspects that officers are more at risk of experiencing compared to general civilians.
Wow. What does felonious mean to the average person listening who might say, is she talking about a long word for felon?
Murder,
No.
yeah.
Okay.
Murder.
So it's a form of felonious would be people that are dealing with cases of murder or death exposure.
So officers, I think, generally accept that they are putting their lives on the line with the risk that they could be murdered as a result.
So
of
like
their job.
a job, being somebody in a position where your job is putting you at high risk of death, essentially, in contrast to some of the other professions one could pursue. Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do and what does your office do? Just kind of walk us through how you've helped to execute this initiative.
Yes. So everybody at Frontline Therapy is trained in extensive trauma work because the thing that these officers, the calls that they go on are normal for the profession, for the occupation. And with that is that doesn't mean that it's normal for a human brain or a human nervous system to experience. And so law enforcement officers are more likely to experience more trauma in one working shift than general civilians are in an entire lifetime.
Oh my gosh, in one shift?
In one shift. And then more often than not, what we ask them to do after responding to that call is we ask them to go back into service and get ready to take the next call. And the human system is not meant for that. And so with that is that bringing in the good trauma work, bringing in the good cardiac elements as well as cancer screenings. That's a large thing as well. What we're able to do is that preventative care that HR was talking about just a minute ago.
So talk us through how you would help somebody who's been through trauma and impacted to the point that he or she is having mental health problems or challenges. How do we fix that?
Yes. So that's done through the good trauma work, and that's really boring with the clinical aspect of that. But with that is that, just as Officer Shepard was talking about, even just having somebody to really vent to and be able to process and talk about those calls instead of stuffing. And one thing that Levi was mentioning is how really when we're stuffing, what's happening is that affects us at a cellular level, which is why law enforcement officers are more likely to have cardiac functioning in addition to those adrenaline dumps and the cortisol dumps. But with that is that the stuffing, the putting it away, the suck it up, which is an old mentality in law enforcement. And that's one of the things that we're working to break, is that stigma. And so being able to have a trusted individual, and having a trusted individual who's trained in this good work, is something that does allow people to be able to offset, to release some of that stuff that they've been carrying from those calls that they've seen, that they've heard, that they've had to perform CPR, or they've had to console a mom who's lost her child. Being able to have somebody who can really sit with that is incredibly important.
So you have really a statewide perspective from your work. Can you give us an example of what you've seen in your body of work, some of what these officers are dealing with that you guys have helped process?
Absolutely. I mean, really any trauma call. So trauma is an injury to the brain. It's something, when we experience trauma, it's something that is too big for our systems to naturally cope with. And everybody brings in their own individual history, their own childhood experiences, their own relationship experiences. We bring in our own personal life experiences, and that can include trauma. And we also bring in our own resilient, independent factors. And so with that is that, again, sometimes officers think that this is just normal because it's part of the field, it's part of the occupation. But again, trauma is an overwhelming event, and it's really a brain injury, and it also impacts the nervous system. And so by doing the good, it's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, in addition to other forms of trauma treatment, it's something that we can resolve those injuries.
Okay, we have a lot of people watching, and so I'm assuming some people watching might question their own life experience and their own, trauma exposure. So what are the signs that you see or a loved one might see in this person that they know has been through it that would lead one to say, you need to get some peer support or some counseling or some professional mental health support?
Yeah. So some of the biggest signs that we see from a trauma aspect is we're going to see avoidance. So people avoiding situations or areas or people or emotions that bring up that same trauma memory. For a law enforcement officer, it might be avoiding the intersection where a fatal motor vehicle accident happened. For another officer, it might be avoiding the street where they had to respond to their first suicide. That avoidance is common in the sense of trauma. We don't want to feel the same way, or we don't want to experience those triggers, so we kind of stay away from it. Isolation is another thing. So when we see characteristic changes of somebody who otherwise was maybe a good time Charlie, they were easy-go-lucky, they were kind of more optimistic, and then we see that they're more cynical, or they're more of a pessimist, they don't really like people, they no longer engage in the activities, they don't go to the state fair because the crowd is too large, or they don't go to the restaurant without, they cannot sit with their back to the door. That's a really common one that people can relate to in general. Isolation is another big thing. And then in addition to that, what we call hyperarousal. This kind of goes to what Levi was talking about. Trauma will put the nervous system in an element where it is constantly looking for threat. And that's a survival response in order for the brain to keep itself alive, which is a wonderful thing. But what we have to be able to do is we have to be able to not always be in that red zone, that top, I'm looking for threat, I can't be able to calm down. It's like being in your car with the car on, and maybe we're in park and we're constantly revving on the gas pedal. That's not great for the transmission or the engine.
That's a really, really good way to put it. So it sounds like, based on everything all of you have shared today, that we're really innovative or sort of cutting edge in terms of being so intentional about this initiative in contrast to other police departments or historical practice.
Mm-hmm. It's very exciting. And I'm from the Des Moines area, and so this is something that is much more of a norm. We're incredibly privileged. This is much more of a norm in that area. And Waterloo being able to get on board, Chief Duncan has also actually spoke with Chief Beck over at the fire department. And so fire is now on board as well with these check-ins, these proactive wellness check-ins. And so it's exciting that all of this is coming to this area.
Well, thank you so much for your insight and for making the trip over here. We really appreciate it. And thanks for partnering with our community to make lives better for our staff and then ultimately the ripple effect of their families and beyond. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.